Okay, so I'm going to go over the product or the project. This is your last project of the quarter, which I'm sure you'll be very excited to know. But this project is on experimental design and sampling. So the first question actually has to do with sampling. You are going to conduct a survey that contains 2 questions that interest you. These questions must both be appropriate and diplomatic. I'm actually going to change this now. You need to collect data from 20 to 30 people. I had it 40 last year because we had access to people in class. That's a little bit different for this one. So you are going to ask these 2 questions, and then you're going to use a graphic display of your choice. So you're going to first in A, provide the questions. I might ask, what is your favorite type of animal? Or what are your feelings about going back to school? And you're going to find some way to display your data using some kind of graphic of your choice. Now, when I say a graphic of your choice, you probably want to provide different options for people so that way you can make some kind of graph for each one of the questions, like maybe a bar graph if it's categorical, or a histogram or dot plot if it's quantitative. But going into this, please know that you are going to have to display your data using some kind of graphic. It could be a pie chart. You're going to, in B, identify the type of sampling method used. Was there possibility for bias in your sampling method? Why or why not? I'm assuming that you will probably not be doing necessarily a simple random sample. So there probably is bias, as long as you put in here what the bias is that happens with your sampling method, whether it's voluntary response or convenience sample. However you do that, you need to identify the bias that goes with it. In C, you're going to provide the data for the responses, and in D, that'll be where you have your graphical analysis of the data collected. So you're going to provide your data, whether it's a table for a histogram or just a table in general. You will provide that data, and then you will provide the graphical analysis for each one of your questions. Okay, in number 2, you're going to explain each one of the biases. So when I talk about non-response bias, response bias, undercoverage, wording of a question, and appearance bias, what do I mean when I say those different things? In number 3, you are a medical researcher. You're going to design an experiment that you could conduct with 500 willing participants. Again, this has to be a realistic experiment. It can't be an experiment done on, the drug use in small children. It has to be something that's very realistic. You're going to explain the experiment and what you hope to achieve with your experiment. This is kind of like the design of an experiment when researchers go into that process. You are going to diagram the experiment. I expect that diagram where you have, tier 1 random assignment into your groups, then you have your treatments, and then you have your compare, whatever that measurable thing is that you're going to compare. That's the diagram. You're going to explain how you would carry out random assignment. Remember, we always talk about how we randomly assign within our diagram. And then you explain how you would control the experiment. So in this, what different controls do you have in place? Number 4, I have Miss Jokers wants to run an experiment on 2 of her stats classes. I have 70 total. She wants to know if students are scoring higher grades on quizzes if they are given 10 minutes to study prior to the quiz, or if they aren't given the 10 minutes before the quiz. You are going to diagram an experiment I could conduct with my 70 students to answer that question. Explain how you would carry out random assignment. So you're going to do that same diagram, and then you're going to talk about the random assignment piece. You can refer back to a couple of your homework problems where you had to diagram. And the very last one, suggest an experiment you would like to see carried out in your class this year. I am open to any suggestions that won't cost me more than $40 in materials. I'd love to do an experiment on you guys on the day that we come back. And then you're going to diagram that experiment and explain how I could control the experiment. Okay, diagram the experiment and explain how I could control the experiment. Like, what would I need to put in place before I actually did it? And that is all. If you have any questions, definitely come to Thursday's Zoom, and I will be in there talking all about the project.